I'm working out Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, presented by our good friends over at Sport Buff. Where if you use the promo code ALS Flightdeck 10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. So go to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, and support local. I'm Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X over at Cliffy D.
Like last week, I think there's something else we should give you to say. It's such a such a short intro for you.
Short, sweet,
But
and
then
to the
again,
point.
with all you make up for it in spades. You know, you know what you're talking about. So, you know what you're talking about.
I certainly try. I like to think if I'm going to share an opinion or a thought, then it's going to be well researched and not just spitting hot takes. I mean, I know that's the cool thing to do nowadays, but just go off half cocked on that. But no, if I'm going to say something, I want to believe it's going to come from a place of being well thought out and intelligent. At least try to, anyways.
It's better, you don't go off half cock or whole cock. Do I need
No,
to bleep that out?
yeah,
Um,
this just became NC-17. Oh, it's Flight Deck
uh,
After Dark.
uh, yes. Speaking of half cocked, what about the weathermen? Because I tell you, dude, in all the times that you and I and many, many Alouette fans and supporters have been to Percival Molson to see a game, I'm trying to remember a time where the weather played such a major factor, and yet it only it only was, it only occurred within a 5 to 10-minute span, and to have such an effect on the result of this game. Obviously, the Alouettes did lose to the Blue Bombers 28-27 on a last-second field goal by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Um,
But
Thoughts, dude,
what
because, any meteorologist would be fired. Usually you can get it right when you're living down south and stuff like that because it's a little bit easier to figure out what the weather's gonna be like. And as we know, up here in the Great White North, it ain't easy predicting, but I still think meteorologists would have been fired anyways.
Yeah, it was such a bizarre instance. I mean, it's kind of funny to think about like just how this both teams played this game. Really, it was a real chess match in a lot of ways. Just going scoring back and forth, a lot of highlight reel worthy moments. I mean, it was a very entertaining game in a lot of ways, and you wouldn't expect anything less from what is technically a Grey Cup rematch uh, to end the regular season, no less. I mean, for the weather to play such a huge factor, I struggle to think of a time when, at least at Percival Molson Stadium, something like that has ever happened. I do think, though, back to I think it was 2013 when the Alouettes went to Guelph and played the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and Sean White tried to kick a field goal into
Yes.
the wind, and it just sort of floated right in front of the goalpost, and then it just dropped like a rock. So it was basically a
Yeah.
dead ball foul, and we're just like, what, huh? Like to me, I remember that one too, and I remember I feel like it bounced in the end zone, and like, would that not be a signal at least? But it was just one of those weird, wacky weather moments that you're just like, you can't even explain it, and I still struggle to explain the series of events that took place at Percival Wilson Stadium last Saturday that allowed Winnipeg to essentially get the win and assure of themselves of a bye week and also hosting the Western final at Princess Auto Stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. I mean, as far as entertainment value goes, you're not going to get much better than that. I mean, this game really was something to behold.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, it just came to me because I'm looking at it, it's staring me right in the face. The Ice Bowl. The Ice Bowl also in '77, the Grey Cup there in Montreal.
True, that
And
wasn't at
that was
Percival Molson Stadium, but you're right that was a weather game that affected the Alouettes in this case for the better, and simply put, Montreal had to reinvent themselves a little bit, at least reinvent their footwear, and that's where the legend of a staple gun came about and changed the course of history for the Montreal Alouettes. Uh, Yeah. I guess we could allow that. I guess that would sort of count, even though that didn't happen at Percival Wilson Stadium,
And it
and the
wasn't a
Alouettes.
short burst. I mean, literally, it was like in and out type of thing. The Ice Bowl was an all day, an all game thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I agree with you. To set it up, this is an Alouettes team that looked really good. They really, considering they had nothing on the line, they look really good in this game. Cody was hot for the 3 quarters that he was in. Davis Alexander looked okay, but he still looked like Davis Alexander. Um,
Which for a lot
just
of people is pretty damn good. So
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think just the issue is that just basically the team went numb. Offense went numb in the 4th quarter, and their
Mhm.
last 3 drives got them nowhere. Still up by 2, but they needed something else, and they couldn't get it,
Huh.
So, yes, they were in that position to win still because when they punted the ball, there was, it was 17 seconds left or so, but Mother Nature came in, you know, um,
Threw a wrench in the works.
yeah, yeah, and it gave Winnipeg a chance again.
Yeah.
So,
And there's lots of ways that all this could have played out. And I mean, it's easy to look back now. Hindsight's always 2020. So I mean, there's a lot of things that maybe the Alouettes could have done a little bit differently and should have accounted for. But I have to laugh. I see some people more or less blaming Coach Moss for I guess not being able to predict the weather, which to me is like, what? Huh? Huh? You you really expect him to control the weather? Like, I mean, that's I, I'm at a loss for words. I don't know how you can come up with a take like that. How about just be thankful your team won. You get to host the Western Final and be done with it. I mean, look, I think Montreal played an outstanding game, all things considered. Considering they really had no skin in the game other than make sure
hmm,
everybody is ready to go. And ultimately, the one hope and goal I had for this game was come out of it unscathed. And the Alouettes did that. They came out of this game no major injuries. You know, everybody's a little dinged up, but I mean, like by and large, this team is healthy and show that they're ready to go. I feel like this team showed who they really were in this game. And honestly, Alouettes fans should be very confident going into the Eastern Final. Full stop.
yeah, Alouettes had their 4th sellout of the year, 3rd consecutive sellout, and it's been a long time that the Alouettes have done that.
Hmm.
Um, but it was nice to see it packed. Um, we went over it a little bit on Flight Deck Live, and as everybody knows, the Alouettes are on a bye week this week, so we're just gonna we have a couple things to talk about this week. There won't be any preview, obviously. That'll be next week.
Hmm.
Um, but as I said, I was happy to see this team do what they did. I mean, less the 4th quarter. I mean, yes, the Alouettes still scored 7 points, but they needed to score more than 7 points in that 4th quarter. And it really was those last three drives where they really didn't get anything. Um, but overall, I mean, Cody looked like Cody from the before he got hurt. Cody
Hmm.
looked really, really good,
Yep.
and it's it's funny seeing the narrative, and we'll go over the stats here, but it's funny seeing the narrative again. And I like how Coach Moss is doing this, and I really do agree because as media type like we are, we've been up and down all year, and we've been saying like it is. We're not jumping. We haven't jumped off the Alouette Nation train yet. We haven't dropped. We're not off the bandwagon. But Coach Moss, I can't remember if it was his post game scrum or if it was this. I think it was his first practice scrum this week. Um, where he said everybody's looking at the last 6 games. Nobody believes in us. Nobody believes in what we can do. We can't do this, we can't do that. They're bringing back the narrative. Not 100%, but similar to what it was last year, where nobody's believing in this team.
Yeah.
And I think how well they played on, last Saturday shows that, yes, teams can't necessarily flip a switch with a snap of a finger. But for you to be able to show up and play as well as you did should allow, I would hope, some of these naysayers to zip it and see what this team can do. Yes, we have to play another game. I get that. It's not a given going to the Grey Cup. It isn't for any team.
Nope.
But I kind of like how Coach Moss is 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 taking the reins on this one. You know, last 2 years the team has last year nobody believes in the 1%.
Mhm.
You know, uh, we can't play our to start the season at home. For the Grey Cup rematch. We've been disrespected. And now this. The last 6 games, people have been saying blah blah blah. I honestly think again, the last game of the year showed guts, showed it really did for this team, and it's just a matter just needs to carry over. I mean, you and I will both agree the game on Saturday was not perfect. It was close, but it was not perfect in any way. Again, first quarter issues again, but that's been a yeah, that's been a that's been a 2024 thing. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So just think of what it would be like if Cody catches fire. And by the way, you were bang on. You and I were talking at the game. I don't know if you saw the scrum or not. Cody in his stash.
The return of the duster.
That's right.
Oh boy. Feel sorry for his newborn. He's gonna get this. He's starting to get to know his dad, and it's like, oh gosh, that's what you got going on. Okay, no, no.
What's your thought on the narrative that's being I don't want to say what's being pushed, that is being preached by Coach Jason Moss?
It's interesting because I feel in some respects he's not wrong in the sense that maybe some people don't believe that the Alouettes can pull it off. Again, a lot of people don't believe that no, you can't just flip a switch and I'll Mac be playoff ready to go. So yeah, they had to play this game as close as they can, knowing full well there is truly nothing on the line for them other than bragging rights. They played I feel in a lot of instances they played this game better than what Winnipeg did, who truly had something to play for in order to get this win.
Yeah.
I think what this team has done better than anybody else is show up when needed. While you can't flip that switch, as we said, at the same time though, if you know what you have to do, you go out and you do it. And I will argue that even in this loss last Saturday, the Alouettes have looked so much better than they have even in their last 2 wins. Even in, like over the past few weeks, like this was the best this team has looked since. I'll go so far as to say that home game against Edmonton before Labor Day. That was peak. As far as I'm concerned, that was peak Alouettes right there against Edmonton. And since then, it's been kind of I won't say a slippery slide per se, but I mean, that's when they started running into a little bit of adversity and things were not looking so great. And there was doubt starting to creep in as to whether this team can truly pull it off. But I think this past Saturday, they heard the criticism. They felt the nervousness, if you will, from Alouettes Nation about can this team do this? Yes, they sewed up the division. They got the bye. They got the Eastern Final. They're hosting it. All they have to do is win that, and they go back to the Grey Cup. But can they do it? And I think this is a matter of showing that yes, they can. I feel extremely confident that you are going to see the best possible Alouettes team on November 9th at the Eastern Final. Whether they're taking on the Ottawa Red Blacks or the Toronto Argonauts, doesn't matter. I'm not guaranteeing a win against either of those teams. I mean, the game still has to be played, but I think you are going to see the best possible version of this Alouettes team in 2024 on November 9th, defending their turf, defending the nest, if you will. And I think that this team is going to do everything they can to get back to the Grey Cup and defend their championship.
No, I completely agree with you. It's again, you be again, you have to play the game. You can't say, "You know what? I'm gone. We're gone. See ya." You have to play the game in order to get there, and that's still what the Alouettes have to do.
I mean,
Um,
the odds makers still think Montreal has the best odds to make it to the
I
Grey Cup
saw
game.
that too. I saw that too.
So, I mean, listen, between that and the nice thing about finishing first is, yeah, you just have to play one game. Ottawa and Toronto have to play essentially two games if they want to go to the Grey Cup. I mean, I'm not going to say it's an easier path necessarily for the Alouettes. I mean,
Oh,
that's
talk
the
to
thing
Toronto
that
last year.
well, exactly. But statistically, and I think they even brought this up during the second half of the doubleheader, was that I think something like 10 teams in the past 20 years have gone on have gone on as a underdog, so to speak, like who played
Right.
the semifinal and then the final and gone on to the Grey Cup. By and large, statistically, you are better off as the host of the Eastern or Western final if you want to go to the Grey Cup, because essentially you only have to play one game. You've had that chance to rest. You've had a chance to work on things. You have a chance to prepare for your opponent, whoever it may be. So I mean, I think Alouettes Nation, I think they're in a good spot. I think truly this Alouettes team is going to be focused, is going to be ready, is not taking this as a vacation week. I see they're at
Not.
practice. They're
Yeah.
working. I mean, they're getting ready for whomever. So it's just simply a matter of finding out who they're going to be playing and adjusting accordingly. But there's no doubt in my mind. I think just based on the performance we saw last Saturday, this Alouettes team is ready to go. They're playoff ready as far as I'm concerned. It's just a matter of, okay, who's showing up to our house and let's go. Simple as that.
Grady Fitzgerald, who went 16 to 20 cliff for 171 yards, no interceptions and a touchdown. And that was just through just less than three quarters, three full quarters. David Alexander ended up going 7 of 9 for 100 yards. Um, I know you talked about it before in at Flight Deck Live. If you did miss it, by the way, you can go back and watch it on YouTube, or you can listen to the audio version now, which is available.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about how well not only did Cody throw, but how Davis was throwing, and I think this just goes to show that both how much both these quarterbacks were on because these were dimes to these wide receivers that these guys threw.
100%. I mean, the throw that Cody threw to Cole Speaker, for example, I think that was close to or just under 50 yards, and in double coverage, no less. And Cole just basically caught that in a phone booth, like just an absolutely outstanding ball. And Davis Alexander was like, okay, anything you can do, I can do better. And he just dropped an absolute dime to Ty John Lindsay, who was given return duties to last Saturday in place of James Letcher Jr. and did not look out of place whatsoever when it came to returning the ball. But he showed too that, hey, yeah, give me a chance, I can catch the ball too. And just an absolutely beautiful ball that was placed by Davis right into the hands of Lindsay down at the 1 yard line or 2 yard line, sorry. And then Davis Alexander just took the ball and rumbled in for the score. I mean, wow. I mean, plays like that are what's going to reestablish this Alouettes team as the team to beat, not just in the East, but in the Canadian Football League. I mean, and I think that was important for both quarterbacks to show that, yeah, we're not done. We are far from done. If you want to doubt us, go ahead and doubt us, but we got plenty more plenty more gas in the tank and plenty more tricks up our sleeve.
And then there was Cody's throw also, a perfect throw to for the touchdown to Charleston Rambo. That was a
Oh my,
gorgeous throw too because the defender had no shot at all on that
no,
touchdown either.
no, and the concentration by Charleston Rambo to catch that, absolutely tremendous. I mean, this offense by and large played a fantastic game. Sean Thomas Erlington has really come into his own really nicely, and again, this is the time that you want your players to play. You want your star players to show what they can do. And while Walter Fletcher is unquestionably the running back number one on this team, Sean Thomas Erlington is no slouch either. You gotta respect what he's been able to do. And also too, not only did he have some really nice runs, STE did, but
Mhm.
what an absolutely phenomenal effort on special teams to prevent a touchdown from being scored. Lucky Whitehead had nothing but green grass in front of him. Like he had all the real estate. And Sean Thomas, ran like a son of a gun, and just a quick shoestring tackle to bring down Lucky Whitehead and prevent the tutty from happening. I think Winnipeg had still ended up scoring eventually, but to at least stop them right there and then. Whew! I mean, give STE a ton of credit. Like, he has really come into his own these past couple of weeks.
Walter Fletcher led the team, 12 rushes for 53 yards. I still haven't looked it up yet, but it's been a while since Fletcher has had 12 attempts for the Alouettes. The STE had six attempts for 44 yards. Fletcher also had a touchdown. Also, when it came to wide receivers, it was you had 8 guys got at least one target, and every single one of them, except one, got a catch. So great game plan, of course. Cole Speaker led the team with 71 yards. That's only on 3 catches, by the way. 3 targets, 3 catches. Um,
Well, when one of your passes essentially is like, if I think it was, I can't remember if it was 50 yards or just under 50 yards, but I mean,
47.
there
Yeah,
you go. So I mean, 47 out of 71. I mean, that's pretty damn good. So
yeah. Then there was Tyler Snead with 60. It's funny, a very quiet 60 for Tyler Snead, in my opinion. Even though he had 10 targets, and he led the team with 8 receptions.
yeah,
So
he too is someone that's come into form at the right time. I mean, let's not forget he missed most of the start of the season due to injury after getting dinged up in the first game against Winnipeg in
mhm.
Winnipeg. It took a while for him to find his footing, but I mean, he's turning it on at the best possible time, and I am here for that 100%.
Yeah. Let's see. KG had 34 yards. Austin Mack at 21. Tyjon Lindsey, as we are talking about before, had one. That was his only catch.
That
But
was
he
a
had
hell of a catch.
one for one for 39 yards. Um, One thing I wanted to comment on, because we were talking about this, and yeah, as I said, yes, there have been some issues that the Alouettes have had their season. As I said, first quarter, sometimes with the third quarter, also when it comes to scoring, and also the running game. They had a good day last week running. They had
Mhm.
it was just over 100 yards, I think, if my math is correct, which it is. Um, it helped. It's funny because I was wondering, because I was going to say, are we going to look up this stat, try to get the stats guru Steve Daniel to look this up. The Owls did not finish last in the league. They finished eighth, just ahead of Ottawa, but still to come alive like they did in that last game, it bodes well going forward. I think not only for the Eastern Final, but what could lay ahead beyond that if they do get that far.
Yeah, and let's give credit to the offensive line and Pro Football Focus noticed as well. Like, these guys played an absolutely outstanding game. They not only protected both quarterbacks and gave them the time and space to do what they needed to do, but they also created lanes for guys like Fletcher and STE to get those big runs in. And it's funny. I found over the past few weeks that they've been looking kind of mid at best, but it felt
Hmm.
like this game too was kind of a wake up call for them, like a chance for them to sort of show that they are who they say they are. And I give them full marks. They did an outstanding job. They did everything that we expect the offensive line to do for this team, and they did it extremely well. So I got to give props to everybody on the O line. They did their job. I won't say to perfection, but they did an extremely good job. And once again, proving that no, this is what you've been seeing over the past couple of weeks. Call it coasting, calling it self preservation, call it what you will, but that wasn't the team you're going to be seeing on November 9th. The team that you saw
And
last Saturday is a better idea of what you're going to see on November 9th. They did their job and did it extremely well. So I got to take my hat off to them. Props to them. They did a fantastic job doing what they
yeah,
had to do.
and also considering that David Ventrelli, the O lineman, was a last minute replacement. I mean, we're talking last minute replacement
Hmm.
because one of our guys was a game time decision, couldn't make it. He stepped up and he did quite well.
Yep. And
So
no, listen. And again, Pro Football Focus, they just released the players of the week, if you will. And sure enough, the Montreal Alouettes offensive line, they all got passing grades. So, kudos to them. They did a fantastic job. And once again, just giving that reassurance that these guys are going to be ready to go in 2 weeks. And as an Alouettes fan, you got to be happy about that. You got to feel good knowing that pretty much every facet of this team, by and large, is ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, just so people know, it was Jamar McGloster. He for some reason, game time he was that game time decision, and, Donovan Trelli was able to come in and did quite a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Give props to the defense, obviously, as they've been very solid for basically for all the regular season, Cliff, and props to Ty Beverett getting 5 tackles and breaking the century mark for total defensive tackles this year for the team. And I think it just goes to show why, I think my opinion, I think you would agree too, why he should be one of the leading candidates. We'll find out tomorrow, by the way, when it comes to the releasing of the East and West finals for the most outstanding players, of the most outstanding categories, on why he is, in our opinion, should be in the talks to be the MOP.
Oh, 100%. I mean, this was, once again, Bev taking the opportunity to show what he's able to do for this Alouettes defense. Played an absolutely phenomenal game again. Came this close to another interception. Both he and Wesley Sutton came this close to causing a major turnover. And unfortunately, I was convinced. I was so convinced that they pulled it off. And unfortunately, they went to the replay, which of course we don't get to see live at the stadium. Well, actually, no. What they showed on the screen looked damn close, but
Yeah,
once you get home, you rewatch the highlights on YouTube or TSN, and you watch it again, and I saw where it was. I'm like, oh, dang it! I mean,
just
that was
just
so
yeah,
close. But yeah, props to Bev for getting it done. I mean, guy's just been playing like his hair's on fire all season long, just without question. It's easy to see why this guy is the unanimous choice from the Alouettes for most outstanding player. How he's also not for defensive player,
I don't know.
I'm sure we'll find out eventually. But even
Yeah,
that's kind of a mind fudge. But
yeah,
it is what it is. So props to Bev. I mean, he did the thing. Wesley Sutton looked outstanding as well. I mean, by and large, this defense, Tim, has really come alive. And uh, I do have to say a couple things though.
yeah,
I do find a couple of weak spots that I would like to see addressed. I find this team plays way too much soft zone, and they're getting burned as a result. And it just almost feels like every game it's been like that. I mean, it's becoming almost predictable just how often they do this, and it could just be a simple matter of, okay, well, obviously this game doesn't count, so we're not going to show you all of our tricks. And if that's the case, then so be it. But as I said, over the past few weeks, I've been seeing a lot more of this, and it's definitely becoming concerning. Another concern, though, is Lorenzo Burns. I mean, it's funny. We talked over the past couple of years how certain guys, rookies, have come on this team and they've taken their lumps. Like they've
mhm,
given up some pretty bad plays, and to the point where you're wondering, like, what is this guy even doing on this team? Uh, Go back, what was it 2021? I think it was Wesley Sutton who unfortunately had that. Last year, KB Anento,
mhm.
unfortunately, it was, we were pretty hard on him, but he, rounded into form at the best possible time. Actually, no, sorry. 2021 was Darius Pickett. 2022 was Wesley Sutton, and last year was KB Anento. I think this year Lorenzo Burns, corner, I believe on the field side, it was ugly. I mean, there was a couple of times where Zach Caleros just burnt this guy like toast, and you're thinking to yourself, oh god, this it's not a good look. I mean, giving up chunk plays like that is definitely not going to leave the best impression. And I'm hoping that maybe it's just a simple matter of when the playoffs come, he'll get it figured out. I mean, he's only been on this team since, well, over the past couple of weeks. So part of me wants to say, okay, he's got to go through it. He's got to take his lumps, and thankfully, he is surrounded by some pretty talented players that can sort of help him get through these miscues and whatnot. But it was pretty evident over the past couple of weeks. This guy they've been picking on him pretty bad. So I mean, here's hoping that come the Eastern Final, he has himself a Kevion Ento moment from last year, for example, and redeems everything that happened to him. I'm hoping that for the young man because he's definitely a talented player. He definitely has shown he can do the job, but I mean, I guess it's that dreaded rookie defense curse. It's just first year on the team, and you're going to have to go through it. You're going to have to eat a little bit of the poop sandwich, if you will. And maybe it's unfortunately this year in 2024, it's Lorenzo Burns that has to go through it. But other than that, though,
The names that you named before, though, look what they've become in the CFL.
exactly. So that's why
That's the thing.
we will not throw out the baby with the bathwater because those guys got it figured out. Pickett, Sutton, Ento, those guys are arguably some of the better defensive players in the Canadian Football League. Lorenzo Burns get it figured out and join them. Only time's going to tell. But listen, he's going to be given every opportunity to redeem himself, and I hope that starts on November 9th against whomever in the Eastern Final.
Don't forget we are on social media. You can find us almost anywhere. If you're looking to catch any of our past episodes, heading all the way back to our very first show, almost 10 years ago, you can do so by heading over to www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can catch us over on X at Alouettes FL Deck, over on Facebook over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, and you can catch us over on Instagram and YouTube over at Alouettes Flight Deck. Speaking of YouTube, you can also catch the audio version, the video version of the show, and also you can catch, uh, if you happen to miss it live, you can also catch the our Flight Deck Live, our post game show that we do from every Alouettes game that we broadcast after every Alouettes game, no matter if they're on the road or they're at home. Also, if you are looking to buy some merch, because if you weren't at the tailgate this past week, you missed the chance for some uh, gratuitous merch. That sounds so weird. That didn't come out the way I expected it to. Some free merch
Free swag.
at the meet and greet. But you can still head over to our store at www.flightdeckgear.ca. Cartoon Bit 56 shirt, logo shirt, whatever it may be. Go there and support the show. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I want to remind everybody too that we are also a proud affiliate sponsor of Royal Retros, where Cliff, you don't need a time machine in order to get your hands on some sweet, sweet retro merch, whether it be NBA stuff, Major League Baseball, Montreal Concords, Montreal Machine, uh, some other Alouettes related stuff may also there too. But if you head over there and you use the code Flight Deck at checkout, you will save 15% off your entire order. A side question, just a side note. I thought it was. I'm just curious to know what your thought was because I don't even know what you're at. Uh, the game on Saturday. Yeah, it's a little bragger. I don't do this much. I'm proud to say it was my 300th game I've been to. 300th Alouettes game I've actually attended in person.
Is it? Does that include home and away?
Yeah. Yeah, since 1996.
Wow. I'd have to go back and count mine because I mean I'm probably not too far behind you. I mean that's pretty impressive. 300. I just think that could have been if it wasn't for the damn COVID, you would have been able to attain that mark on Thanksgiving. How cool would
In
that have
the
been?
in the rain.
In the rain, but listen, do the Alouettes not always seem to do something spectacular on Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
But we
mean,
we had something spectacular happen. Not it just didn't go the Alouettes way for technically my 300th. So I mean, but still,
right.
um, how many games, whether you're listening or watching us, how many games have you seen? How many games have you seen the Alouettes? And remember, I know there are guys who've been going to see Alouette games forever,
Hmm.
which I'm sure are way more than I have. Seen way more games than I have. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. What are the games? How many games have you guys seen? Um,
And now you know it's home, away. Do you count Grey
home
Cup as
away.
well?
Yeah, home away. Yeah, yeah, Grey Cup. Great.
Okay.
You're seeing the Alouettes play. It's a great cup.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll have to tally that up. I'm kind of curious myself. I don't know if I'm quite at 300, but I'm sure I'm close anyway. So I mean
Yeah, for
that's a
sure.
hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah. Speaking of the meet and greet, by the way, we're talking about it before. Thanks to everybody for coming out. It was a little muted, obviously, because we had to do we had to cancel it from the week from the game prior. But it is still something that is going to be we're planning on to be a yearly staple.
Mhm.
Um, it's just a determining. I think we're still going to try to keep doing it at the same time that we normally do. But something that Cliff and I will be talking about, especially with it being our 10th anniversary broadcast season next year. We're gonna think about some stuff, and we'll let you guys know, obviously, when the time comes. But it was fun nonetheless, and we again thanked everybody who came out. And again, you got some free merch. You got some free merch. I hope you guys wear it proud, and because it was fun, Cliff, to be able to explain the story behind the cartoon Bird 56 shirt. Everybody just sees it online. They just don't know the story behind it, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I even had people asking like, what was the impetus for the Alouettes flight deck too? Like, what's the history between like they just asked like, what's the history between you and I, and what led us to become this podcast? So I was excited to be able to kind of give a Cole's Notes version of the history of the flight deck.
Oh, come on! You wanted to say Cliff Notes. Come on!
That would have been cheesy, and but yeah, I did really want to say it.
Yeah,
I had to restrain myself. You know, it's funny because Cole Notes is a Canadian thing, right? Cliff Notes is an American thing.
that's true. You're
So
right.
again, for our American listeners and viewers, yeah, Cliff Notes, Cole's Notes, but anyways, you know what it is. Anyways, it was still really cool that people were interested, wanting to know our history a little bit, and maybe that's something we're going to delve into when we have our 10th season. Like, just kind of go back in time a little bit, and like kind of explain what led to and how this all came about. I mean, it's an interesting story, I think. I mean, at least people that were asking about it seemed really interested
Yeah,
in it. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe that's one of our first shows next year. Maybe that's what we'll do, is kind of go back through the history of the Alouettes flight deck and how we went from just two guys talking to each other about the Alouettes to what you folks see right here, right now. Because I'm telling you right now, I had some visions for this show, but I never envisioned it was going to get to where it's at right now. I mean, and
Mm.
I'm thrilled, and that is truly because of all of you that are listening, downloading the podcast, watching it on YouTube, all that great stuff. And again, I cannot thank each and every one of you enough that has decided to come along for this ride and will continue to come along for the ride. So once again, as far as the fan meet and greet goes, from the bottom of my heart, and I feel so confident speaking for Tim as well, thank you so much for showing up, showing out, showing us the love. It is truly, truly appreciated.
Yeah. The CFL announced today, Cliff, and this is a true statement. For the first time, the All CFL, wait, how do you say it? Teams, All
All
CFL
CFL
teams,
teams. Yep.
essentially, yeah, which is essentially now it is the All Star teams that are picked by local media.
Hmm.
And the Alouettes had 6 players on that list. Uh, it's funny that obviously from what we've seen this year, I'm not surprised that all first and foremost that all of them were on off. Well, no, one was not. No, I'm wrong. So it's 5 of 6 were on defense.
Hmm.
But I'm not surprised, and I'm sure you aren't either, that um, that as many defensive players were on the team that for the Alouettes that there were.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've been talking about this defense all season long. I mean, by and large, they have truly been an elite force. Not perfect by any stretch, but I mean, there have definitely been a lot of guys that definitely would qualify as all stars or all CFL or wherever the hell you want to call it. I mean, like there's some dudes on this defense that have played some pretty outstanding football. Uh, you know, offensively, there's been a lot of very good, but I think they've been playing just a little under what would most people would consider to be at an all star level. It's not to say they're bad players by any stretch. That's nothing could be further from the truth. But when I look at their overall season, I can say, yeah, they're very good. Are they all stars? I'm a little hesitant to say yes. And again, not a knock on them, but it's just simply stating fact that they played very good this year. I mean, listen, they got the most wins the Alouettes did, so I mean, they had to have been doing
Mhm.
something right. They had to have been scoring enough points to get those wins. But ultimately, when you talk about all star caliber or what constitutes an all star, you take a look at this defense and you can look at the guys that were listed and say, yeah, yeah, right there, right there, right there, absolutely, 100% all star or all
Uh,
CFL.
uh, uh, offense for offensive tackle, Nick Callender was put on the became an all-CFLer. It's
Mm-hmm.
weird to say all-star. I'm just call him an all-star. Uh,
Screw it.
Isaac Ademi Berkland, defensive end. Tyrese Beverett, Darnell Sankey, Kamian Ento, and Marc-Antoine Dequoy. And I've already seen this brought up, and I actually kind of agree because I glanced at the lists quickly today, not really much thinking about it, but somebody brought it up. Um, they're really honestly, and I had to see what I, 'cause I gotta. You'll be able to help which position it is, but um, we really are missing somebody on defense that should have been on this list. Don't you agree?
Yep. In fact, I can think of two that I feel should have been on this list.
Okay. Well,
Defensively.
obviously, one is Mustafa Johnson. It's like, where the
Yes.
hell is Mustafa Johnson?
Yep. That the first one that comes to mind absolutely is why isn't Johnson on this list? Because he before he got hurt, and unfortunately his season's done, which really sucks. But that
Yeah.
is football, unfortunately. But yes, I where is he, and also where is Wesley Sutton? He too has really you know, I mean, no surprise. He plays at an outstanding level. It feels like each and every game, but I'm truly surprised too. Like he may not have the stats, but I mean the way he plays this game, the way he's just such a disruptor of the offense, the opposing offense, and a leader. We cannot overstate his leadership capabilities. I mean, I will say, like, as far as being in that secondary goes, I mean, he has definitely stepped up in a big way and become a leader on this team, not just on the secondary, but also in the entire defense. I would argue that he is one of the you know top I don't want to say general necessarily, but I guess for lack of a better term, one of the top guys when it comes to this Alouettes defense. And he too wasn't listed. And I'm baffled. I'm baffled why both of those guys were not listed as CFL, all CFLers or all stars or whatever the hell you want to call it.
Actually surprised Marc-Antoine Dequoy made it. He hadn't considering what he was last year. To me, in my opinion, I think he had an off. He had his 20. He was off in 2024.
Agreed.
You know,
I mean,
and
looked
I'm
good.
surprised. I'm
Had
yeah,
had some moments that he looked really good, but once again, I feel you're right. He didn't quite have that most outstanding Canadian year like he had last year. Like he was kind of dialed down a little bit, and maybe it's simply a matter of the other teams respecting him and trying not to test him as much because you throw the ball in his direction 9 times out of 10 he's coming away with it. So I can understand and almost respect the fact that they wouldn't even try him. But I I mean again, and once again, no disrespect, but I mean I look at Marc
yeah.
Antoine and I can say very good. He had a very good 2024, but just a touch below what I would consider to be an all-star year personally.
I agree. And again, obviously, since we're taping this now on Wednesday, it's going to be very interesting to see who ends up being the finalists for the most outstanding player awards. It's going to be very interesting to see. And obviously, we'll check out our socials. I'm sure you'll see us talking about those because um, well, obviously there are players that we're hoping that are going to make it to that are going to be able to go to Vancouver to the awards ceremony to have the shot at being named most outstanding whatever position it is. So
Yeah, I would be
um,
very surprised. I feel like we'll see. I'd be surprised not to see more than one Alouette. I truthfully, I think the East should be represented as much as possible by the team with arguably the best record. So, I mean, one thing I did notice though, especially with the Eastern nominees, or sorry, with
yeah.
the All CFL nominees, it was all equal. Each of the 24 positions, all four teams had six representatives,
Huh.
and I don't think that's ever happened before. Like
Yeah, because usually if a team is dominating like last year, didn't Toronto? I remember Toronto had a ton of people last year.
they did, they did, and this year, like they've got six. Like everybody's got six, and it's funny because for the most part, the Eastern Division was a tough division to play. I mean, even Hamilton, who I hate to say the worst team because okay, the fourth place team. Let's call it that.
Yeah,
They too had some bona fide studs playing for them. So yeah, those guys too deserve their all star or all CFL nods. But it's just crazy to think that of like not one team had like more than like they all had equal numbers like that. I don't know if that's ever been done before. Like that's incredible when
yeah,
you think about it.
yeah. I agree. Um, just real quick, because you did mention it, and then we'll talk about the other big news that came across the CFM. We only touched on it briefly on Flight Deck Live. The Alouettes are practicing this week, even though
Mhm.
they're on a bye week. And you, as you mentioned earlier, Coach Moss just plainly said it because he was asked about Mustafa Johnson. Uh, it, I think it's less. I think, as you said, Mustafa's done for the year. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
I think he would. Coach Moss didn't say that, but I think he would need from the grace of God for Mustafa to play. But that's me saying that. Um, and
I
it
think that's
sucks.
fair. Yeah,
It sucks.
it's unfortunate because I mean, let's face it, this defensive line, as you know, is always a work in progress. But there are so many talented pieces on this, and Mustafa was definitely one of, if not the most talented piece on this defensive line. And for him to go down to injury and be essentially be lost for the rest of the season, flat out sucks. I mean, we saw what he was able to do last year in the playoffs and leading up into the playoffs and even in the Grey Cup itself. I mean, dude just was absolutely phenomenal. And to know that he's not going to be suiting up for the rest of the season is unfortunate. I mean, hopefully it's not too severe an injury that he'll be able to come back in 2025 and do what he does best. But I'm not going to lie, it's going to be tough. Should the Alouettes go to the Grey Cup and win it again, I still hope Mustafa finds a way to celebrate shirtless like he did last year. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Like this guy didn't own any shirts anymore. I don't know if he was Hulk Hoganing them the whole time or what, but yeah, it's kind of off putting to see Mustafa wearing a shirt because he's not participating in the match. But oh, such a bummer, such a bummer.
I know. And what was the other thing? I wasn't able to hear it 'cause it sounded like you and I watched the same post-practice scrum. Who else? Because remember, this is not the players do not have to practice this week. It really is an extra week to stay ready.
Mhm.
Who else did Coach Moss say was not practicing this week? I couldn't. Again, I listened to it 3 or 4 times, and I still couldn't hear who he said it was.
Yeah, unfortunately, the audio was not that great, so
Yeah, on that one, yeah, I know, and I don't know if it was reported everywhere because I know uh, some of the media here in Montreal, I think it was French media, was reporting it. Some of the stuff online is it was reporting about Mustafa Johnson, and I don't remember them. I don't know who asked the question, and I don't remember who said it was. So, but it's a this week is not mandatory from our understanding. Next week, obviously, will be once they find out who they're going to be playing, and they're just doing it like it would be a normal week, but they're not going to they're not going to play. So they will
which
practice through Friday, through Thursday. Sorry, through Thursday, and take it from there. So
which is smart. There's no question. Like you, this isn't a vacation for the Alouettes. Like they didn't get to this point just to go on vacation. It's not like the NFL when they have teams that get a bye and they decide they're going to go to Cabo or Miami or something like that to chill out like before their playoff game. It's not about that. Like this team again, knowing full well that people are doubting them. People are starting to question whether or not this team is for real again, which I think Jason Moss likes that. I think he likes that people doubt this team and won't give them the credit because that'll just make them more dangerous and make them hungrier. And the fact that they're practicing on their bye week, I'm sure they're not going full bore, balls to the wall kind of practicing. I think they're just, I'm pretty sure they're just going over the basics again and just, reiterating what needs to be done and trying to correct the mistakes that have been showing up over the past couple of weeks To me, I think that's the best use of their time, because I couldn't imagine them just sitting around in their apartment or home just twiddling their thumbs waiting to see, oh, are we going to play Ottawa, or are we going to play Toronto? Oh, and then we'll get ready for that team. Like, no.
Oh,
As
no,
our man Vernon Adams always says, you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I think that's what the Alouettes are doing, is they're staying ready, because the minute they find out who they're playing, then the game plan truly gets underway. But I think for now, and I think this is very smart on their part, is just stay together, stay loose, but at the same time, be in that mindset that you're working. You got something to do. Like, this isn't a vacation. You're here to do a job. You know what the goal is, and make sure you do everything you can. You make sure you're working towards it. Like, don't kill yourself in the process, but make sure you're working towards that goal of being at that Eastern final, winning it, and going to the Grey Cup again.
exactly. The other big news in the CFL, uh, league HQ related, because there was other big news today, obviously from the Edmonton Elks and stuff like that. But is that it was announced on Saturday that Randy Ambrosie will be stepping down as commissioner uh, in 2025. That's I think that's how they put it. And the CFL will have a new commissioner, which is very interesting because you look at the route, and I'm just using this as an example. You look at the route that Edmonton took to get their new president and CEO. It's not the type of person that you would have expected. He was on. I don't know if he was on the list, the finals list, to be their new CEO and president, but there are other people that were on that list that they thought was going to be coming in, and I think that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen within for the new commissioner. Question is, what type of CFL background, if at all, the new commissioner will have? And in your opinion, Cliff, does this new whoever they look at, does the new commissioner need to have CFL experience, whether it be a player or an executive, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a must have. It's more of a nice to have, because we've seen both, right? We've seen former players as commissioners. We've seen, you know, basically suits as commissioners, like just
Mhm.
business type people. Yeah, let's not forget. Essentially, whoever the commissioner is has 9 bosses, right? You know,
Yeah,
board of governors that he has to serve, and that's essentially who he works for. So, I mean,
which I really think people forget, by the way. I think people
agreed.
forget this all the time. I do
Yeah.
understand that we grind, there are many people have many gears to grind when it comes to Randy Ambrosie and
Hmm.
some of the decisions that he has made. But
Right.
again, as you just said, Randy's the face. He's the face of the league, but but his bosses are controlling basically what's most of the stuff that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's does not sound like an easy job for sure. Um, Definitely, though, I think what they have to be looking for is again, football experience. I agree would be nice to have. Like, it doesn't have to be a former player or coach or, you know, executive. You know, just someone who does understand the game, understands how important it is to Canadians, and like how important it is to the fans of all 9 teams. And simply put, someone who's just ready to work, ready to take where this league is going right now. And arguably, I will say that this league is in pretty good shape right now, and you got to keep that going. I know everybody keeps talking about, when are we going to have expansion? When are we going to expand to the Maritimes? When are we going to, that seems to be the big key for, every year, whoever the commissioner is, and I've seen it seems like every Grey Cup at the State of the League address for the fans, people ask the same 4 questions, and one of them, of course, is expansion. And when are going to have the CFL on CTV? Well, guess what? This year that did happen. You had the Touchdown Atlantics. You've had Touchdown Pacific. Like, moves are being made to try and expand things and try to draw more interest, and potentially, maybe, hopefully, one day getting that 10th team. But there's still a long road to hoe before you can even consider that. And I think whoever the next commissioner is, regardless of his background, he's going to be faced with those questions, and he's going to be asked that, and he better have a good answer. Like, not
Is
just
his or her background?
You're very right. You're very right. We could see
'Cause
a female commission.
there are a lot of women out there that are very qualified to become this, and locally, nationally, there are a lot that are very qualified to become the new CFL commissioner.
You're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be a male that is the commissioner. I'm sure that a smart, driven businesswoman, or a female member of an organization, a former executive, could step into the role as well. You're absolutely right. Uh, no matter what, it's going to be interesting to see, and I truly don't know which direction the league would go in, like the board of governors, which direction they would go in when it comes to choosing the next commissioner. Like I said, it's funny to see all the people throwing their hats in the ring, like whether it's fans, media members, and such, and a couple of these candidates, if you will. I look at them like, oh, like no, no, but
How about this? And this seems to be happening recently, and I'll just throw a name out there, because obviously Annie LaRoche is, as an example, has done a
mhm,
great job. She went from being with the Alouettes, uh, being with um, the foundation, the Alouettes Foundation, then going on to the Montreal Alliance, the CEBL, and now on to the new Montreal Rose of the Northern Soccer League.
mhm,
Mike Morreale, who is currently now the commissioner of the CEBL.
yeah, I've heard
There's
his
a
name
there's
bandied. Yeah, you want to talk about someone who has, again, he has football experience, a former player,
yep, yep.
former executive. Uh, you know, as you said, he's done a fantastic job in growing the CEBL into what it is. Uh, I'm sure he too would be very, very interested in potentially coming back. Now, obviously, I think he'd want to make sure that the CEBL is still in good hands before he were to take over potentially the Canadian Football League. But that is a name I've heard bandied about, and I wouldn't be mad at that choice as well. I think, and actually, I know Mike from his days with the CFLPA, and I
Hmm?
mean he's a smart, well spoken individual. I think you could straddle that line of dealing with the executives, dealing with the players, dealing with the fans, dealing with everybody that's associated with the league, and I think he would do a terrific job. Uh, I mean,
Because
that's
sometimes these guys give up these positions because, as an example, Mark Waitman, look what he was doing prior to being renamed the Alouettes president and CEO. You know,
mhm,
he was working with the Troyer Lions of the ECHL.
yeah,
So,
and working with a team out in Switzerland as well. I mean, he
hmm
was.
hmm
I
prior to that, yep.
was he also not with the alliance for a little bit too? Like, I mean,
I think just a touch. Yeah, not in a major capacity, but yeah, he was. Yeah.
point is he was able to still get his name out there and show that he could do things on an executive level, and
Mhm.
you know maybe that's something that the league would have to consider. There's someone with that sort of sports background, and yeah, male, female, you know, CFL experience, no CFL experience. I mean, there are a lot of different ways you can go with this, and quite frankly, I just hope the league chooses someone that is going to take what I think is a great opportunity, because right now the league I feel is in really good shape. It's not perfect by any stretch. They've still got you know bumps and bruises along the way, but I think where this entire league sits in 2024 going into 2025, I think it's in pretty darn good shape, and it's just simply a matter of taking where it is right now and keep moving forward. And if you can move up as well, even better. But just keep this moving forward. Don't go backwards. Don't go backwards with a lot of the way that teams run things and how the league has done business and things of that nature. Like, just find someone that is enterprising, bright, and able to move this league forward well into the 21st century.
It's gonna be interesting. We'll see what happens because suppose we haven't. No timeline has been given. Yeah, the only timeline that we've seen so far is what the Edmonton Elks want to do. Very interesting timeline, needless to say, on how they want to name everybody before up by Grey Cup. That's interesting in itself, but still, that's the Elks. That's not us.
Yeah,
But still, it's interesting to see how they're doing it.
yeah.
But
I
then
know
again,
that.
they got that type, but then they got that type of their owner. who used to be a major fan.
Mhm.
That's the thing. So I think, their new hire for president and CEO, sometimes these things fit perfectly.
Sometimes they do. I mean, look at Larry Smith when he too was a commissioner in the Canadian Football League, came into the Alouettes as president and CEO a couple times actually. He was able to do that and
Yep,
did a pretty outstanding job, like really truly building this Alouettes name up in the community and doing great things off the field for the team. So
yep.
if
Spearheading expansion over personal Molson.
that, for example, a great thing after spearheading expansion to the United States for when he was CFL commissioner, he just likes expansion, doesn't he?
Ah, yeah,
But
yeah.
again, I think with the Elks, though, I mean, someone who's well invested in the Edmonton franchise, who played for them and has seen this team go through its ups and downs, and essentially is planning to rebuild the trust in that organization,
Mhm.
which is sorely needed. I have to say, I think that's so far from what I'm seeing from our friends in Edmonton, they're very excited by this move, and now it's just a matter of now that the president's in place. Now the search for the GM starts, and then
And then
GM is going.
potential head coach. Yeah,
Yeah, GM's going to
yeah,
hire the head coach, and then they're going to decide what to do with the rest of the team. And so it's going to be a very interesting little time in Edmonton over the off season. I think we're going to see a lot of moves and probably even a lot of whoa, like
yeah.
moves that are really going to make people sit up and take notice. So, and listen,
I'm sure.
I'm
Yep.
happy for our friends over at the Turf District. I know they've been eating the poop sandwich for the past couple of years, just like we've been eating it. From what 2015 to 2019. I think everybody gets their turn with it, but hopefully those days are over for our friends over the Turf District because
Yeah.
it's not fun. It's not fun. I mean, people like to poke fun when it's your turn to be you know the lowly dog. Everybody likes to kick them when they're down, but I think it's time for another one to emerge and let Edmonton find its footing again.
Yeah. Again, there is no Alouettes game this week, but the game will be obviously next is Saturday with the Eastern Final with a opponent to be determined. We will know our opponent by by about 6 p.m. on Saturday evening. We'll know who the Alouettes are going to be facing for a chance to go to the 111th Grey Cup. So we will too be back next week. Obviously, no game this week, so no Flight Deck Live. But we will be back next week to talk about the matchup and hopefully, again, just to get everybody ready for what's expected to be a very exciting Eastern Final for the first time in Montreal since 2012.
Oh yeah, it's maybe it won't be 50,000 plus at the Big O like it was back then, but this is going to be a fun game. There's no question about that. As I said before, and I'll say it again, I think this Alouettes team showed this past Saturday that they're ready to go. That you haven't seen the best yet. Like the best is yet to come with this team, and that they're going to be ready for whoever they face, whether it's Ottawa or Toronto, doesn't matter. They're going to be ready for whoever comes into Percival Molson Stadium, and you are going to see an absolute barn burner next Saturday, November 9th. So make sure if you don't have your tickets already, and again, over 20,000 have been sold, so a lot of you do have them. But if you still don't have your tickets, I strongly urge you get on that because I got a feeling it's going to be sold out again. I got a feeling it's going to be rocking, and God willing, Tim, this team puts on another stellar performance and goes back to the Grey Cup and defends their championship.
Find out that, and we'll be talking about that and a lot more next week. So again, we appreciate everybody who joined us this week for the show. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on final approach.